Orrak VII, supreme ruler of the Veltri Empire, was not a humble being. To be fair, nobody really expected him to be. When you controlled 43 star systems, commanded a fleet of 12,000 warships, and had a throne carved from the bones of your enemies' moons, modesty was not exactly on the daily agenda. He was tall, violet-scaled, with 4 arms that each wore a different ceremonial ring symbolizing conquest, dominance, glory, and even more conquests. His voice could shatter glass. His laughter could shatter dignity. And right now, Orrak VII was laughing. Hard. "Say it again," he wheezed, clutching his upper chest with 2 of his 4 arms, while the other 2 waved dismissively at the trembling diplomat standing before his court. "Say it again, Grez. I want to hear it one more time." Ambassador Grez of the Outer Diplomatic Council straightened his collar, cleared his throat, and said, with absolute professionalism, "The humans of the Terran sovereignty have formally requested a ceasefire and direct negotiation. Your Radiance." The throne room of the Veltri Palace ship, Eternal Dominion, erupted. 500 courtiers, generals, priests, and servants all burst into laughter together. It rolled through the hall like a wave, bouncing off the obsidian walls and the giant murals of Orrak's many victories. The sound was enormous. It was theatrical. It was, frankly, a bit too rehearsed, like everyone knew laughing at the right moments kept them alive. Orrak wiped a tear from one of his 3 eyes. "Humans, Terran sovereignty." He said the words slowly, like he was tasting them. "You mean those soft little pink things with the 2 arms and the 1 face?" "Yes, your Radiance." "The ones who have been at war with us for approximately 14 months?" 17 months, your Radiance." Orrak paused. 17 months. He turned to his Supreme Admiral, Vac, a thick-necked officer with medals running down both shoulders. "How many of their ships have we destroyed, Vac?" Vac stood tall. "Over 900 confirmed kills, your Radiance. They have roughly 200 vessels remaining in active deployment, by our last intelligence estimate." Orrak opened his arms wide. 200 ships. We have 12,000, and they want to negotiate. He shook his head slowly, grinning. "Ambassador Grez, tell me, what exactly do they think they are bringing to this negotiation?" Grez shifted slightly. "Their message mentioned something called Project Halcyon, your Radiance. They said its completion changes the nature of the war." Dead silence hit the room like a hammer. Then Orrak laughed again, louder this time. "Project Halcyon." He stood from his throne, spreading all 4 arms wide for the audience. "Humans name their little science programs like they matter. They build their single-pilot ships and call them destroyers. They fire missiles at our shields and call them superweapons. And now they have a project name, with a pretty word. Halcyon." He rolled the word around in his mouth with contempt. "Do you know what Halcyon means in the old Terran language, Vac?" Vac blinked. "I do not, your Radiance." "Peaceful. Calm." Orrak sat back down, waving a dismissive hand. "They named their last desperate program after the concept of peace. That is beautiful. It is also pathetic." He looked at Grez. "Tell the humans their ceasefire is denied. Tell them we will accept only unconditional surrender. And tell them they have 48 of their hours to comply, or we push our forward fleet to their home system, and end this politely." Grez bowed low. "As you command, your Radiance." The diplomat left. The court settled back into its usual rhythm of flattery and feasting. Orrak leaned back in his throne and sipped from a long crystalline goblet, gazing at the stars visible through the massive observation window behind him. He was comfortable. He was certain. He was, in the tradition of every powerful being who has ever dismissed a warning as weakness, spectacularly wrong. 46 hours later, at precisely 3 a.m. by Veltri ship time, every sensor array on Eternal Dominion screamed at once. Alarms tore through the palace ship, with a sound like the universe itself clearing its throat. Orrak was yanked out of sleep by Vac bursting through his chamber doors. Face pale, eyes wide, voice shaking for the first time in 20 years of service. "Your Radiance. Something has appeared. Behind us. Within the security perimeter. Inside the throne room's direct line of sight." Orrak blinked. Sat up. "What fleet?" Vac swallowed hard. "Not a fleet, your Radiance." "Then what?" "One ship." Orrak stared at him. 1. Human. Ship. The silence between them stretched long and cold, and somewhere in the back of Orrak VI's mind, a very small and very quiet voice said, for the first time in his entire life, "Oh!" The thing about being the most powerful ruler in 43 star systems is that nobody ever really prepares you for the moment when power stops working. Orrak VII stood at the observation window of his throne room, in his sleeping robe, for arms crossed, 3 eyes fixed on a thing floating just beyond the glass. His generals were behind him. His admirals were behind them. 500 people filled that room, and not one of them was breathing normally, because there it was, one ship. It was not large. That was the first thing that hit you. The human vessel was maybe a third the size of a standard Veltari cruiser. It had no visible weapons ports, no glowing engine flares, no dramatic spines or aggressive angles the way Veltari warships were designed, all sharp edges and threat. It was almost smooth, rounded, matte gray, like someone had built a very serious piece of furniture and accidentally launched it into space. It just sat there, completely still, inside the most heavily guarded security perimeter in the known universe, surrounded by 12,000 warships, parked behind the throne of the Veltari Emperor, like it had made a reservation. Vac stepped forward, voice tight. "Your radiance. Our sensors cannot determine how it got here. There was no jump signature, no breach in the perimeter grid, no trajectory trail. Our instruments detected it at approximately the same moment it decided to simply exist in that location." Orrak kept staring at the ship. "Can we target it?" A long pause from the weapons officer at the far console. "We are attempting to lock your radiance. The targeting systems are cycling. Something is interfering with the lock protocol. We have not been able to hold a solid lock for more than 2 seconds consecutively." "What about the fleet? Our perimeter ships?" Vac's jaw tightened. "They report the same issue. 12,000 ships, your radiance. Not one confirmed weapons lock on a single human vessel." The silence in the room shifted. It changed texture. It went from the silence of shock to the silence of something much colder, the kind that creeps up the back of your neck when your brain is slowly putting together a picture it does not want to finish. Orrak turned from the window, opened a channel. The communications officer, hands visibly unsteady, opened a direct line to the human ship. Static filled the room for exactly 4 seconds. Then a voice came through. Human, female, unhurried. The kind of voice that had absolutely nowhere else to be. "Emperor Orrak, good morning. My name is Commander Sable Duran of the Terran Sovereignty Vessel Halcyon I. I apologize for the early hour. We did consider waiting until sunrise, but your ship doesn't really have a sunrise, so we made our best guess." Orrak's upper right hand curled slowly into a fist. "You are inside a restricted military perimeter. You have violated Veltari's sovereign space. Identify your method of entry and stand by for boarding." A brief pause, almost polite. "We will not be boarded, your radiance. And as for the method of entry, that is actually what I am here to discuss." Another pause, shorter this time. "You received our ceasefire request 46 hours ago. You rejected it. You told our ambassador that we had nothing to bring to a negotiation. I am here to correct that misunderstanding in person." Orrak looked at Vac. Vac looked at the floor. "You sent one ship," Orrak said flatly, "one ship, commander, to the center of my fleet, to correct a misunderstanding." "Yes. That is either the bravest or the most foolish thing any being has ever done in my presence. With respect, your radiance. Those two things are not always different." A short breath. "Halcyon I is not a weapons platform. It is a demonstration unit. What it does is not fire or fight or destroy. What it does is move. Specifically, it moves anywhere, through any barrier, past any sensor grid, inside any perimeter, without detection, without a trace, and without permission." The voice stayed level, factual, almost bored. "We spent 17 months losing 900 ships to teach you to underestimate us. While you were counting our losses, your radiance, we were finishing this." The room was utterly still. "I am currently sitting 4 meters behind your throne," Duran continued. "I could have been sitting there 17 months ago, before the first shot was ever fired. We chose not to. We chose to ask first. Twice, actually. A deliberate pause landed like a stone dropped into still water. This is a third ask. Orrak VII, supreme ruler of 43 star systems, conqueror of 11 civilizations, wearer of 4 rings, did not speak for a very long time, because the math was doing itself in his head, and the math was brutal. A ship that could go anywhere undetected. His palace. His bedchamber. His person. 12,000 warships that could not hold a targeting lock. A war he thought he was winning by numbers, while the enemy was never actually fighting by numbers at all. He had spent 17 months laughing, and they had spent 17 months working. He turned back to window. The small, smooth, unremarkable gray ship floated there in the silence of space. Patient as a fact. What are your terms? Orrak asked quietly. Withdrawal from all occupied Terran-adjacent systems. Release of prisoners. Non-aggression pact. 15 years minimum. And one more thing. The voice on the channel held a beat, precise and deliberate. An apology. Public record. For the 17 months. Someone in the back of the court made a sound. A strangled, involuntary noise that was half laugh and half horror. The sound died immediately when Orrak raised one hand. He stood there at the window for a long moment, looking at one human ship, sitting in the most secure location in his empire, asking him to say sorry. Then Orrak VII, for the first time in his reign, uncrossed all 4 arms and lowered them slowly to his sides. Not a combat gesture, not a dismissal, a surrender posture. Open a formal channel, he said. Full diplomatic record. Broadcast. He straightened his robe. He looked at the ship. He spoke clearly, so every word landed clean. Commander Duran, I accept your terms. Out in the cold silence of space, Halcyon 1 did not cheer, or flash its lights, or make any dramatic display at all. It simply floated there, calm and steady, the way something does when it was never afraid to begin with.